So delighted to be joined by Keith Higgins and Cathal Cregg. We're going to look ahead to the All-Ireland football semi-finals. Obviously, Mayo Dublin is taking place Saturday, and now we have the confirmation that Kerry Tyrone will be the following weekend due to the COVID outbreak in the Tyrone panel. I suppose firstly, lads, you both had inter-county seasons. Keith, you swapped codes, if you like, focus solely on hurling. I might start with you just briefly. How was the year for yourself?
Yeah, cheers, Ara. Yeah, it was good. I suppose. Look, it finished off on a high note in Croke Park there last weekend. So anytime you get a bit of silver up there is always good. So look, it was enjoyable. I suppose again, a bit like last year. It's when it's a shortened season like that, it can be over fairly quick. So you can have to make the most of it, I suppose. But yeah, look, it was enjoyable. It was kind of nearly week on week. I think we'd probably 2 or 3 weeks off in the middle of it, and that was it. So from that point of view, it's grand. You're playing games all the time, but I suppose ultimately you'd probably prefer if it was a bit longer, but look, that's the way it is. We can't complain. But yeah, like I said, when you finish at the top of things at the end, it's always a good sign. So happy enough the way it went.
Yeah, was it a big change from, obviously you played football for what was it, 14, 15 years at least with Mayo, and you've obviously tried to do both, but probably the demands of the football didn't allow you to continue with the hurling probably as much as you like. So was it an enjoyable year just to focus on hurling for once?
Yeah, I suppose there's probably a bit less pressure to it, even kind of playing the league games there. I suppose typically, even when they were playing the league, whether it was this year in Division 2 or up in Division 1, there's pressure on to try to either stay in Division 1 or whatever it is. So from that point of view, I suppose there's probably a bit less, I suppose, exposure to it or demand from the public, I suppose, in one way. You can just kind of go out and try and enjoy it. But at the same time, you're playing the game, you still want to win, and everybody's still kind of fairly ambitious. So yeah, I suppose it's a small bit more enjoyable, but I just found probably this year and last year, I wouldn't say difficult, but a bit strange, I suppose, the whole COVID thing. When there's no crowds there, I suppose you're kind of limited in the number of training sessions you can do. So a bit strange, but like I said, I think the way probably last year was in particular, we're just kind of happy to get back to playing games at all at some stage.
Yeah, and Carl, for yourself, this year obviously probably wasn't the best of years, ending the year with no victories. I mean, the games that Roscommon did have this year they were playing top teams, but I'm sure you would have wanted to end a bit better than it did.
Yeah, definitely. It was disappointing, I suppose. Yeah, it was good. It's always good up playing Division 1 football, but you're going to be coming up against tough opposition. I suppose we had, I suppose it's what people would have said at the start of the year, the 2 top teams, Mayo and Kerry. They were difficult games. I suppose the game then, Galway in the league, we would have hoped to have been closer to them in that, and the same in the following 2 games against Armagh, the relegation, and Galway in the Hyde. We were obviously hoping to be very competitive in that game, and I suppose the 2 goals really killed us. Yeah. There wasn't that much in the game even coming towards the end, but the second goal really killed us in that. And I suppose overall we would be disappointed with it. But as you said, they were all top class opposition that we were playing against. But ultimately, we were disappointed with it. Yeah.
Was it hard to lift yourselves going to the Galway game? Obviously, I'm sure you probably would have liked to finish in the top 2 in the group you were in, but realistically, you probably would have looked at that one relegation playoff as the game to nearly peak in. So was it hard to nearly pick up?
No, training was actually going very well throughout the league. It was going well before the Armagh game, and like we probably in the first 15 minutes we played really well. Went 5-1 up, and then just conceded. They kind of pinned us in on the kick out and got a couple of points in a row, and then got a goal, and that put them back up in the game, and they kind of just kept hitting us on the counter attack from there. So. And ultimately we lost that game. But then going into the Galway game again, I suppose we looked at the positives. We had played well in periods of the game. The training had gone well again, so I was definitely hopeful of a good performance. And the first half we actually played well again against Galway, but the goal killed us in the first half. We probably should have been up at half time in the game. And then when we got ourselves back to maybe a point or 2, we conceded the goal again. And in a tight game like that, you can't be conceding goals, and ultimately that's like Galway a good side too. So that was ultimately the difference between the 2 teams.
Yeah, I mean, moving on to this weekend, Mayo were eventually the team that did come out on top in Connacht. And they come up against Dublin. Keith, you would have played in this game so many times during the years, and it usually serves up a great game. And it's a difficult one to call in some ways. Like Dublin are being questioned that they probably haven't had these questions, yet they won the Leinster final, I think, by 8 or 9 in the end. And, it seems ridiculous, nearly question 6 in a row. But there's a few doubts, say, going into this semi-final compared to other years.
Yeah, I suppose, like I said they've probably just been hitting such a high standard over the last 6 years that any bit of a drop off at all, and people are probably looking for a small bit of hope or a small bit of chink in their armor. And I think that's probably what it is more than anything, is people looking for a bit of hope, I suppose.
Yeah.
Like, now in fairness, like, you lose players the likes of Cluxton, Jack McCaffrey, Paul Mannion, Macaulay, Paddy Andrews, these guys over the last year or so, then, you're obviously not going to have as strong a panel. But at the same time, while they haven't been setting the world alight in any of the games this year, even in the league, they've been doing enough to win them, I suppose. And that's probably a sign maybe a good team who's probably maybe just struggling to hit that level of performance again, is if they're still coming out on top and they're still playing the game on their terms, like even you look at the Kildare game there the last day, like people saying they're not playing well, they're still hitting 20 points.
Yeah.
Only conceding 1, 9, 10 scores, and even the goal probably what came with, there wasn't that long left in the game, I don't think so. They're still playing the game on their terms. They're just doing what they have to do, and without really hitting the heights. And I suppose that's probably maybe the fear you'd have from a Mayo point of view, is that All-Ireland semi-final against Mayo, be good atmosphere up there the next day, that's when they could come back to some bit of form that we know they can hit. So yeah, there's probably a small bit of doubts over there, but at the same time, I still think it's Dublin's to lose. I still think they're hot favourites for this one. And again, I suppose as much as you'd have doubts about Dublin, there's probably still a few doubts around the Mayo team as well, unfortunately.
Yeah, Cathal, do you think it's nearly the Kerry hype this year that's got people even question Dublin more so, because Kerry are putting up such high scores? Cliffords are on fire, Shawnee O'Shea's on fire, and Kerry are actually the bookies' favourites now as well, which seems a bit strange, but probably rightfully so with the performance they put up.
Yeah, I suppose they have been the form team overall, but I think the demise of Dublin has been exaggerated a lot. Like, they've still won all their games relatively easy. Like the Leinster final there against Kildare, like Kildare are a good side. They're after going back up to Division 1 with Mayo there, and they were never in doubt realistically. Like as Keith mentioned there, it's just that they're not beating teams by 15 and 16 points. They've probably changed their style of play as well. They seem to be playing more possession-based game, whereas a few years ago it was gung-ho, kicking the ball in, looping, popping it over the bar and so on. But like beating Kildare by 8 points and they still missed a good bit is still a relatively comfortable win, I would say. So I still think that it's theirs to lose, as Keith said. I do think Mayo and in with a right shot of it. If they can bring the performance that they brought in the second half the last day. I think the introduction of the two McLaughlins was huge. I think they'll need to bring that series running game to it that they brought in the second half. Like if they bring what they brought in the first half against Galway, they won't have a hope. That pace and power and generally James Horan sets up his teams to go at Dublin when any time he has done it. But on the flip side, that will give them a chance. But on the flip side, it'll give Conor Callaghan, Kieran Kilkenny and all these a lot more space than they got against Kildare, who just sat back. And I suppose that'll be intriguing to see how that goes and the matchups that happened there on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, Keith, it is probably a risk and reward tactic. Like Mayo, to be fair, they always back them. You always backed yourselves over the years. You'll always think that you can beat Dublin. I think Mayo, let's be honest, them and Kerry are the only two that probably had no fear of Dublin over the years. And you think Mayo will have no fear again going up on Saturday?
Yeah, I think that's what James be drilling into them again, is that they're going after them and they're going after the win. And I suppose that's kind of been his mantra since he came in back in 2011, in particular, I suppose 2012, 2013, in those years, So it was always a case that it was literally just bringing that high tempo game and going after them. And I think I was asked during the week by someone, they asked me, was James Horan building a team to take on Dublin? And I don't think he is. I think he's just building a team to play the way he wants to play, which is that high running game, high press, high tempo. So I don't see anything changing. I suppose my only hope is that they might get a bit more tactically cute about it and how they do it. I don't think you can sustain that for the full 75 minutes, 80 minutes that you're going to have a game now. I think they need to nearly have a plan B where that maybe they do what Dublin do and just bring 15 guys behind the ball at stages just and settle the game down. Because as Carl said there, you go flat out against them, they break one tackle, and next thing there's an acre of space in front of them. And as we've seen before, you give Con a few yards and he'll have 2 goals in the back of the net in no time. So you'd kind of hope that if they do maybe mix it up a small bit. And yeah, I think, as we said before, Dublin just play the game on their terms because it's very possession based. They don't turn the ball over and look to go 100 miles an hour like Mayo would do. They build it up, they let it forward, get in position. I think that's it. While it doesn't sound that difficult to defend, it is very hard to defend because they're constantly moving, though they're dragging players out of defence. And as we've seen last year's All-Ireland final, for Dublin's second goal, it was Killian who ended up marking Niall Scully back inside our own 13-yard line. He got stuck to the ball, next thing they created overlap and it's a goal. So that's the kind of thing you don't want to happen, but it takes a lot of communication back there. So yeah, I think James will probably go down the same route he's always gone. They're going to look to go after the game, whether Owen McLaughlin starts now or Kevin McLaughlin. I suppose based on their second half display against Galway, you'd imagine they would. So as Carl there is kind of trying to look through some of the matchups during the week and trying to pick matchups against them 6 Dublin forwards is tough going. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting one. You give Mayo a chance, but like I said, I think ultimately you should have to go with Dublin, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, the name Cillian O'Connor has been mentioned a lot this year. Obviously, he's a massive loss for Mayo. Now, they did overcome Galway in the end of the second half. Will we really see the loss of Cillian in this game, do you think?
I think so, yeah. Like, you look back at last year's All-Ireland again, and I think Mayo hit 14 points and Cillian hit 9 of them. Mm-hmm. I know 7 were frees. I think, was 7 frees, maybe, 5 frees, 2 marks. I know 2 were marks, but he was still winning the ball out in front. Yeah. No offence to Ryan O'Donoghue, who's a great lad, a good footballer, got a really good attitude, but is he going to hit 9 points the next day against Dublin? You can't see it. They got 1-2 from Matty from midfield against Galway. Will he get 1-2 against Dublin? Again, it's hard to see it. So again, the fear you'd have is where the 15, 16, 17 points that you're going to need to get against Dublin, where's that going to come from? And like I said, this Dublin defence, I don't think they get the credit they deserve. They attack in numbers, they cover off the scoring area very well. They get a lot of bodies back, and they're just a very hard team to score against. So again, that's why you'd be looking at Dublin as a favourites, because you'd wonder where the Mayo scores will come from.
Yeah, Cathal, what's the position you think will be the key area on Saturday? Obviously, the midfield will be interesting because Matthew Moran is going well this year. He's been consistent enough. He always chips in with a couple of scores, and you have Brian Fenton as well. As Keith said, both defences are fairly strong. Probably Dublin on paper have the stronger forward line. So where do you see it being won and lost?
I see the midfield battle being very strong. Matthew Moran is a very good player. He has gone to another level this year. I can see Dublin just putting McCarthy on him, who for me has been unbelievable for the last 10 years, and really running him the opposite way. And McCarthy can do it both ways. It doesn't matter, I think where they play Aidan O'Shea is going to be key. I think they have to play him in the full forward line. I think if they play him around the middle, that Fenton and McCarthy just run him into the ground. So for me, I think that Rowan battle there, if Mayo can get some joy with him and get Aidan moving inside, I think that's going to be key. Because as was mentioned there with Cillian O'Connor, Mayo are going to need a huge game from Tommy Conroy and Ryan O'Donoghue to win this game and to get a couple of goals realistically. So I think that midfield battle and how Aidan, if they position him at full forward, that's probably going to be the axis of whether they win the game or not.
Yeah, it is interesting with Aidan O'Shea because, I don't know how many years people have been talking what is his best position. Keith, you played with him for many years. What do you actually think his best position is?
Yeah, I still don't know if I've figured it out yet. Like it's a funny one. I think sometimes it really depends on who you're playing. You know, I mean, there are some games you want Aidan around the middle because he's such a good tackler. He's such a presence around the middle. There are other games then, I suppose, maybe against the likes of Dublin up in Croke Park. Can he be exposed, I suppose, by a Fenton or McCarthy running by him? You know, that's the question. I suppose ultimately, as Cathal said there, you know, you play him in full forward, and again, we've tried it before against Dublin, and they just, you know, they'll have one person marked and they'll have a sweeper playing right in front of him. And like I said, they still get the bodies around the D, and you wonder, is he kind of clogging up space in there as well at times, you know, if we can't get him on the ball. So it'd probably nearly firm if he's mixing it between the full forward and half forward line, a small bit changing it up, and maybe come looking for the ball, drag his marker and maybe the sweeper away from the goal a small bit to create a bit more space for Tommy. So yeah, maybe probably start him in full forward, but let him go drifting the odd time, let him go back in the odd time and change it up a bit, because I think if you just leave him in there and, like I said, Dublin just played the sweeper in front of him, you know, they'll probably might, the ball comes in high, they might let him win it, but they'll have 2 or 3 bodies swarming around him and they'll just get them turned over. You know, he seems to get the kind of head of steam up against Dublin. So it is a question that I suppose is always going to be asked of him. But I think, you know, for me, it goes on a game by game basis to win on your opposition at times. But I suppose looking ahead of this Sunday, as Cathal said there, maybe full forward, but drifting out the odd time as well, I think.
Yeah, Cathal, I mean, they've gone Cormac Costello and Dean Rock. Desi Farrell has started the pair of them the last couple of games. It was usually one or the other, and Cormac Costello was usually on the bench. And Dean Rock was taken off in the Leinster final. He didn't play any of the league. Like, it's interesting to see what happens there, because Cormac Costello maybe just to overtake him a tiny touch.
Yeah, Costello had an unbelievable league. He scored 113, I think, against us.
Yeah.
He was brilliant. Like, but Dean came in the last day and he got 5 points. He was taken off early. He wasn't overly happy about it, but personally, I like to see that, because, you know, he's a bit pissed off with it, like, you know, and he's obviously pushing things on. I'm sure Desi done that for a reason. So, but if we had the two of them, you'd be happy enough, like, you know, and having that choice. Like, they've him back, John Small is back now, Merchant is back. Like, they're huge players for them over the last few years. Like, and they're all still relatively young. Dean, obviously, himself or Costello can kick the frees. John Small generally tags the best forward on the opposition team, definitely in the half forward line, and Merchant brings serious pace and speed to the attack. Even when he came on in the second half against Kildare, he just started going straight up through the middle. So again, that brings a completely different element to what people have been talking about. You know, they've been a bit sluggish, they've been missing this, that, and the other, but to get them 3 back alone is a huge boost going into, and they got minutes the last day, so they're back training a while now, so they'll be really ramped up for it. And look, I think Dublin know exactly what's coming down the track here. They've got serious games from Mayo over the last 6 or 7 years, so I can't see them not being up for this game either. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, who would you see the Dublin, the main player? Obviously Fenton is the one that, but even in the forward line, I nearly think Kilkenny's the one that makes them tick, and Con's just that ruthless finisher up front. Who would you say that is the main man for Dublin, if you like, in that forward line?
In the forward line, it's Kilkenny. I suppose he makes them tick. Look at James McCarthy's the main man there in the middle. He just drives everything. Kilkenny is very smart in what he does in possession. I'd say he seems to dictate a lot of that. I think Con is just ruthless. He just goes, whether he gets the ball 20 yards out or 35 yards out, he's only thinking of goals. Like, and he had a relatively poor game by his own standards, which you don't see too often. So I think you'll see a big game from him the next day. Probably a matchup for him and Oisin Mullen, who was a fantastic player. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I might get final predictions. Keith, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I suppose even just following up on that question there, like, I mean, you're looking at the matchups there. Like, for most teams, you're already picking out 2 or 3 forwards, but with Dublin, like, you have Con, you have Kenny. You know, if Costello starts, who marks him? Paddy Small, like, I mean, these guys all take marking, but I think particularly Scully as well. I think he goes under the radar an awful lot, but between him and Fenton, they're the two that seem to dictate things around the middle. Like Carl said, McCarthy's the kind of driving force there, but I think Scully and Finch are the two guys, when they get on the ball, they're the ones looking up, they're seeing what's happening, they're kind of dictating the play from there. So like whether they put Ushing back from centre back in the full back line again, obviously I thought he did very well in the second half, particularly against Galway last year. So I think there's huge questions there, I suppose problems for James trying to figure out. But predictions, yeah, like I said, Hart would say Mayo have a great chance. If they bring that kind of second half performance against Galway to the game, if they get that running game going. But Head just has to say Dublin. I just think they have, I suppose, too much firepower up front. They've kind of got the smart ball players around the middle, and they just have a mean defence that's not going to give up. Like I said, the 15 or 16 scores you're going to need to beat them. So, yeah, like I said, from a Mayo man, you want to see them getting over the line, but again, our Head will have to stay Dublin, I'm afraid.
Yeah, Cathal, would you go along the lines of that?
Yeah, I would. I think Mayo are improving all the time, but I just think Dublin are very good. Like they're so good. Like, and people are writing them off after winning 6 in a row. It seems mad. But look, I won't fall off the chair if they do beat them. I do give them a chance, but I would have to say Dublin.
Yeah. So the other semi-final has been delayed. Kerry and Tyrone, due to a COVID outbreak in the Tyrone camp. I mean, it's not ideal preparation. We don't know how many players are affected and can they train or whatsoever. I mean, Cathal, would that be a huge impact on them, missing a week's training?
Yeah, definitely it will be, because it'll be more than a week. It'll be 10 days to 14 days. It happened to us last year after the Armagh game. And it's a disaster, to be honest. Like it's 2 weeks. I don't know how many of them there is. I've heard various numbers, but it's up on half the squad. So you have half at home, probably doing a bit around about the house or whatever, and you have half training away. Like they're probably going to be under pressure anyways against Kerry, because like Kerry have been the form team this year realistically. Even if things were going well, I would probably be calling Kerry. So it's very unfortunate that it's happened, because I was looking forward to this semi-final as well. Tyrone had a mixed league, I suppose. They really learned from the league, and they came through, Cavan, Donegal, and Monaghan in the final. So it's unfortunate that it has happened, but I think I can't see them winning this one now, the way things are going.
Yeah, Keith, from like a Kerry point of view, the pressure's on them. I think, a lot of people are expecting I think they are expecting All Ireland from Kerry this year, especially people from Kerry. Yeah,
absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there. So I think the pressure probably is coming nearly as much internally in Kerry than it probably is externally as well. I'd say Peter Keane has the guys kind of riled up in that it's literally All Ireland or nothing this year after what happened to them last year. Obviously, I do think they're probably the best equipped attacking side to take on Dublin. And like I suppose, like I said, it's just whether they get that defensively, whether they can get that set up right. I mean, we've seen in the league game there, I think it was 4 goals they conceded against Dublin or something like that. So, if they hadn't, if they cut down 2 of them goals of the game, won by 6 points. So, like, I know it's not as simple as that, but I suppose that's the kind of balance that they're looking to get. As Cathal said there, you can't really look past Kerry against Tyrone, even though I don't think it's going to be as straightforward as people are making out. I think, the league game that Kerry put 6 goals past them is probably irrelevant at this stage. Just Tyrone were so far off of that day for whatever reason. So I think Tyrone have come on a bit. They've kind of progressed a bit over the summer. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about them trying to play this more front foot football, I think is what they called it, or heads up football or whatever, but they're just literally trying to play a bit more attacking, and we've seen the way McCurry has been moving in some of the games. So I think they probably nearly have to revert to a small bit more defensive. So whether they'll be able to get the same return then going forward is a thing, but I do think they'll give Kerry a few problems. But like I said, Kerry I think just ultimately should have too much firepower, and it's pulled probably a bit. They seem to be playing a bit smarter as well this year. They're not always just trying to go purely direct. Seen with Paddy Clifford coming out, seem to be a bit more patient trying to work the score. So, look, I think that, as we said before, that semi-final is Kerry's to lose as well.
Yeah, Carl. I mean, Tyrone are trying to kick the ball more. You can definitely see McCurry's getting a lot of ball inside, and they put Matty Donnelly in there as well. So you can understand the defensive strategy because Kerry have so many attackers, but that Kerry defence is vulnerable in some ways because Cork did cause them problems, albeit for 15-20 minutes in that Munster final.
Yeah, they did. I suppose Kerry are playing probably the most attacking brand of football of any of the top teams at the moment. And realistically, if the more attacking you play, you're going to be a bit more vulnerable at the back. It's a balancing act, but like they're just putting up huge scores across the league. Like Munster, they demolished everyone in it. Like Clare, Tipperary, Cork, who aren't bad teams. Like they're all Division 2 teams. Tipperary won Munster last year, and so on. Like the scores they're putting up against them is huge. Like when you go through the forwards that they have, like the addition of Paddy Clifford as well this year has been huge. I think he's been man of the match in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
Like David Clifford has been kept relatively quiet, so far in the last couple of games. So, it's I suppose Tyrone. They had a very good first half against Monaghan, but when Monaghan came out and really went at them, they struggled then with that pace. And if the Kerry play the way they have been playing, they will too cause them a lot of trouble. And I just think Tyrone are probably a small bit too early in their development of new management to take out a Kerry. But next year and the year after, they'll be a serious outfit.
Yeah, I mean, Keith Cathal did say Paddy Clifford is getting a lot of the headlines at the moment. Dave is nearly in his shadow, which is incredible to think. But do you think David Clifford is the one that he could fire Kerry to this All Ireland? That if he clicks, he's unplayable at times.
Yeah, look, he's the guy that's going to get all the attention there from any defence, I suppose. And you can see the Tyrone boys particularly having a go at him on the next day. So, he's the guy who's capable of maybe hitting 2-3, 2-4 a game and driving you on. But as well as he's going to do, as well as Paddy's been doing, I think Sean O'Shea is probably the guy who's probably going to smuggle under the radar this year, even though he's probably been up there with Paddy as Kerry's most consistent forward. Like I know obviously he takes the frees, but again, he's the one who's kind of demanding the ball in the full forward line. Now he can kind of play a bit closer to goal, let Paddy go out and do, I suppose, the donkey work out on the middle. So I think between the 3 of them, you throw in Guinea as well. He's going to take American. So as I said, they have so much firepower up front, a bit like Dublin. But yeah, like I think between David Clifford and Sean O'Shea, they're the 2 guys I think that are going to drive them on.
Yeah, you can definitely see the conditioning in the Kerry players, even from when Sean O'Shea and Clifford came in 2 or 3 years ago to now. Like how key is that, strength and conditioning at intercounty level when you want to play at the highest level?
Yeah, it's massive. But I think, you look at David Clifford and you look at Sean, like when they came in first, they weren't small guys, they had, I suppose, the build there and they're probably just kind of filling that out. But I think you probably look at the aerobic ability they have, particularly coming from their half back line now, is huge as well. Gavin White, who else? There's a few of them guys kind of driving off from the half back line. I think they're kind of going down that route of they know they can't just kick the ball in long all the time to the boys. They kind of have to set up a platform from defence as well. They're kind of going down that route as well. So aerobically, I think they've come on an awful lot. I think that's kind of suiting the way they want to play, is that it's a bit more high tempo, a bit more attacking, I suppose, and the quicker they can get the ball into the boys, the better. So, they've made huge gains. I think, obviously, what I said earlier on, I don't think James Horan is building a team to beat Dublin necessarily. I think Peter Keane is probably building a Kerry team to beat Dublin.
Yeah, Cathal, I mean, Darren McCurry has been one of the best forwards in the country this season, but does he need help? I mean, Matty Donnelly has gone in, but he's not a fella who'll probably get you 4 or 5 points. Conor McKenna's not probably that player either. Now, they do have Cathal McShane. Would you throw him in from the start for this one?
Yeah, I suppose the problem, like Matty Donnelly is the main man, along with Hart has been for a good while, but you probably need him out the field and inside. That's where they're probably just a small bit short. It's interesting to have him played McShane and started him in the games up till now, so he obviously isn't just fully back from that injury. If he was flying it, I would definitely throw him in, but like Matty Donnelly was really, really good the last day in there. He was winning ball. He was, setting up scores taking scores himself. And he still had an ultimate game. Like in the second half, there was a few bits and pieces that he could have tidied up on. So I'd be expecting a big game from him again. But I'd be just afraid that they may need to have to bring him out the field a small bit as well to curb some of the problems that Kerry will throw at them. But look at I think the trimming that Kerry gave them earlier on in the year will definitely give the Tyrone lads a bit of motivation as well. They won't have liked that happened that day. But ultimately, the COVID situation is going to have a massive outcome in this game.
Yeah, I'm just interested to hear your thoughts on actually the Niall Morgan and Rory Beggan did it in that Ulster final as well. They're nearly trying to evolve the goalkeeper role even further. You know, it was nearly like the kickouts, the 45s. Now it's nearly positioning yourselves on opposition kickouts and nearly playing as a midfielder at times. I mean, is it a risk worth taking?
I think so. Well, it all depends on the goalkeeper you have.
Yeah.
If you have a player that plays outfield and is comfortable playing outfield, I see the benefits of it. Obviously, there's a risk reward in it. Could have gone badly wrong for Monaghan the last day, but I can see the benefits in it. But only if you have a good outfield player playing in goals. Like Morgan and Beggan can do it. Not every keeper could do it.
Like in fairness to Morgan, he used to nearly play as a sweeper at times, like going back to the last couple of years, you know. So I think I've never seen him against Donegal one day, and he was literally playing in front of Michael Murphy from open play and cutting off passes into him. Like, so in fairness to Morgan, he's been doing that role for a long time, not just from kickouts, you know. Like, and as Carl said, he plays outfield for his club team, you know. So he's a smart footballer. You know, he's a bit of a header as well, which you need, I suppose. But you know, like if you've got the personnel to do it, I think it's a no-brainer sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it did seem a bit crazy. He did press up to the corner forward for one of the kickouts. In that situation, would you just push the defender up one and just nearly push man up? That nearly seemed a bit too extreme, if you like.
It's very hard in a situation though. Like it's easy to say everyone push up, but if you're asking 5 people to push up, one of them won't push up, and it'll be a short kick out. Whereas if you're only asking one man to do it and push up, and the reality is, like, if everyone's tuned into it and it's part of the game plan, as long as it's not on the fly, like the fullback can go back into goals and the cornerback can go back into goals. Like it's, you know, and realistically there isn't going to be a goal unless, you know, you're within 50 55 meters, because they're not going to be able to shoot from that far out. So I think if you have players with pace, particularly like Morgan, who can create an overlap, I'd say why not do it?
Yeah, like pushing, as you said there, like you're pushing a man up from corner back to wing back, whatever. It just leads to too much confusion if you do lose the kick out, because you have 5 players then scrambling back to figure out who they're marking, whereas you leave everyone marking the wrong man. Morgan pushes up. You know, even if they lose a break around midfield, as Carl said, they're not going to score a goal from there. You know, he's time to get back, or he's time to get someone back to cover. So, like I said, it's just a smarter, I suppose, it's the most less risk of the two moves, I suppose, is just to push him further up.
Yeah, and he can even score. I mean, I'm pretty sure he got an equaliser against Roscommon, and he scored against Mayo the week before from about 55 yards. So he, as you said, he does play outfield for the club. So you do need that comfortable ball player to do this role. You know, a goalkeeper that's not comfortable on the ball, it just wouldn't work.
Oh, it'd be an absolute disaster. It'd be mad to even try it. There's probably only a handful. The player, I can't just think of his name, that plays with Leash, he was very good a few years ago. Brody, yeah. He was very good at it. He was probably one of the first ones to do it. But there's only a handful of lads that could realistically do it.
I suppose final predictions for this one. Carl, we might start with you this time.
I would have said Kerry even before COVID, but I definitely say it now. I just think Tyrone's preparation will have just been hampered too much.
Keith?
Yeah, I suppose agree with Cathal there. Would have said Kerry, but like I said earlier, I don't think they'll have it as easy as people are saying. You know, you could see it being fairly tight for the first 50 whatever minutes, but you know, like I said, the whole situation of COVID, maybe lads not getting as much training in the last 2 or 3 weeks as they could have. You know, you'd imagine a big pitch like Croke Park that'll come back to haunt them a bit. So, yeah, Kerry for me, but not as easy as people are saying.
Yeah, on Sunday as well as the All Ireland Under-20 final. Obviously, myself and Cathal are from Roscommon, so it'll be a bit biased. But Cathal has given the whole county a lift, if you like, and it was a great win against a highly rated downside on Saturday evening.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's been a good couple of weeks. That Under-20 team and panel, it's just a very good squad of players. I suppose that the final is a bit unique in Offaly and Roscommon in it, so it's a huge one for both counties going into it. Roscommon did a great win in the kind of final and backed it up against Down. I've only seen Offaly playing once. I've seen them playing and beating Dublin in the Leinster final, which was a huge win for them, and they were full value for it. And then they went on and bet Cork, which was another massive scalp. I didn't actually see that game. I think they bet them in a 15-minute period. They should a really good period in that game. So look, it's a huge day out for both counties, and win or lose, it's massive progression for both of them.
Yeah, I mean, Keith, although the Mayo team, I think Tommy Conroy, they lost to Kildare in the All Ireland Under-20 final a few years ago, you can see the rewards of it. A young group of players coming through, and their development has probably happened quicker than probably a lot expected in Mayo.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the couple of weeks after, I don't know, it was the year after they lost the Under-21 final there. I think Tommy and Oshie were on the 20s. I think they got bet by Galway, and I think a couple of weeks later they were brought in by James. So I suppose the way those guys have developed physically over the last 2 years has been huge. They've come on leaps and bounds. So yeah, I think that's probably the one disappointing thing with Mayo over the last number of years, that we haven't had as much consistency at underage, under 17 or 20 as probably like Roscommon or Galway. Because if you get 2 or 3 of them teams coming through every year to your senior panel, it makes a huge difference. But again, I suppose as Cathal said there, like to see a pairing like Roscommon and Offaly in an Ireland final, I think it's good for football. It's probably a bit of a boost that the whole country needs to see, rather than seeing the Galways or the Dublins and Kerrys there all the time. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting final. Again, I haven't seen either team play too much, bar the Offaly Dublin game, and as Cathal said, they were full value that day against Dublin. I mean, they should have bet them by a lot more. A couple of goals kind of kept Dublin in it before half time, and there's only one team playing football after that. So yeah, it'd be an interesting game. You probably expect it to be a lively game of football. I don't think there'd be kind of too many blank defenses or whatever there. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, I suppose finally, Cathal, like, it probably shouldn't be underestimated how big a deal it is in these counties. Like Roscommon would just go mad over any bit of success, and it really, like, 24,000 is the capacity now. That obviously should be more tickets, because Kerry and Tyrone was meant to be the second part of it. Like, especially for Offaly as well, a county that have struggled at football, so it's a big day out.
Yeah, it's huge. Like over my time, Roscommon haven't been in too many All Ireland finals, and Offaly, I suppose, have a huge tradition back the years. So they're really coming to the fore in both codes now as well, and they've huge momentum. So I'd imagine there'll be a huge crowd from both counties at it, and it's, I suppose, for both counties, it's probably a good thing that the Kerry Tyrone game has been off, because we would have a lot of people around would have struggled to get tickets, because obviously the 2 senior teams would have got the majority of them. So it'll be a great day out, and hopefully we had a good game of football and Roscommon win.
Exactly. Well, lads, thanks very much for your time, and thanks for coming on.
Perfect.
No bother.
See you now.